mentioned that you I think whether it's a reflective thing, you didn't have any mental prep going into that. Like
Hmm.
and I've heard you say whether this was post this games or actually on this event, I'm not sure. But you essentially felt like you were physically at your best, but mentally you weren't. You're not there.
Yeah.
So was that a fact that your mental prep had gone, or you just didn't have one at the time, and that was a realization post that games?
I just, part of me, sounds strange, part of me didn't care or know if I should care about the race. I literally felt half of my mind said, what if I win? Does it seem like I'm insensitive that I don't care about my sister? The other half of me, of course, knew what I had been through, uh, as an athlete, and your chance right now to win the Olympic Games. Of course, you want that too, but when half of your mind is fighting that, it's uh, it's not going to work out.
But none of that is unnatural, is it? That none of that is those thoughts that you're having there are totally normal. And as you're saying them, I'm thinking they're going, yeah, I would be thinking pretty much the same. There's nothing there that is sinister, or it's just purely you're, I guess, doubting that moment. And there's no other scenario I've ever heard on the in sporting history of something like this where yes, you might
Well,
have somewhat. Well, there'll be athletes that have probably been told news, but is there other stories of things like this?
I don't know, but that's the point. Is that there was. I'm 22 at the time. There's certainly no precedents that I knew of, or nobody to talk to, or no book to read, or what should I do? And quite honestly, even if there were, it's really personal.
Yeah.
It's in your own head, and yeah, and so it was a really tough thing really for a kid to go through, even though I'm obviously an adult at this time. But um, yeah, and then I literally go down, 10 seconds into the race, and then it was like, all right, well, what else can happen today? Number one, but two, I was like, okay, I just, that's over. I can't even describe how much I just at that point wanted to go home,
Mm.
wanted to say goodbye to Jane. Now there were 3 days in between the 500 and 1,000 meters, so I still had to stay there for 3 days. Um, but I truly, uh, after what happened that night, it was just more of a, okay, we gotta get this done and go home. I felt like the whole family sort of waiting for me, even for the funeral, and it was all of that kind of kept adding up to me too. I'm like, why? I don't want to be the focal point of this. This is about Jane. It's not about me.
Was there anyone with you who was at the games with you at the
There
time?
was, luckily. So that's been the really the saving factor in a lot of this. So having nine of us, we didn't come from a lot of money, so not everybody could afford to travel to all the games. But about maybe three or four of my brother and sisters were with me. The other half were at home, and so I did have some family up there that stayed right through both races, and they were there. In fact, my brother came into the village to spend that whole day with me, and before the 500. And then on the 3 days between my races, I was able to spend it with my brother and sisters that were there. So that was a huge help.
So when you managed to get away from the games after you've had, you said you competed in the 5,000 as well.
The
The
1,000.
1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you competed in the 1,000, and then you've flown home. I'm assuming straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what was the after? I guess time had passed, and you had gone through the process of dealing with this as a family. How long did that process take for you to then feel like you wanted to get back onto the ice? Were there moments of I don't think this is for me? Was there second guessing, doubts? What was going on in that period?
So I went, I would say there was a huge delay in my grieving process, and or came in stages. Not like I didn't grieve at all, but went home, had the funeral. We did our thing as a family. We said our goodbyes. Um, I I still felt like, all right, now, now what? Because now what do I just sit home? I have nothing to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I went back to the games. I had teammates that were racing. Bonnie Blair was a one that was a big story back then. I wanted to support her. So I actually went back to the games themselves, and then from there went back to Europe and finished out the World Cup season. I just needed to do what I was comfortable doing. I felt like
Mm.
if I sat at home, I would go crazy. And so I think it was good for me, good for my mind to be able to do what I knew what I was comfortable with, and actually did well. I won then the World Cup overall in my 500 and 1,000, I think. And um, so it was strange. So then came home from that season, trained all summer, and the following season, I was enrolled in the University of Calgary because we could train there um, and then go to school at the same time. Well, Calgary is where this happened, right? Um, so it was literally the fall of the next season, when I was up there at school, that it all hit me, because so many
Right.
things that I blocked out. I would be walking from a class back to, and it would be like I'd go through place that I brought back a memory, and that was the hardest part. All of a sudden, it was almost 9 months later when I it hit me hard, and then I grieved, and I was a mess. I really was. I needed to talk to doctors, and it was a tough time.
I imagine with the amount of siblings that you have, everyone was dealing with it in different ways. I'm assuming they had
Mm-hmm.
their separate families, and I don't know, but are they in different parts of the world or the country, or are they fairly close
No,
by?
luckily everybody pretty much stayed around and lived in our almost near where we all grew up. So that was a blessing.